Welcome to Friday Night In with Colm O'Regan as part of Ennis Bookclub Festival 2021. My name is Danny. I'm the Artistic Director of the festival and I'm really glad that you're joining us. This event is free, but if you'd like to make a donation, you can through the donations page of our website. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to a Friday Night In with me, Colm O'Regan, at the Ennis Bookclub Festival. And we couldn't be more in than we are now. Thank you so much for coming along. I know this is weird. I'm going to pretend like you're all out there shouting and whooping and hollering. Let me just give a quick break for applause and cheering. Oh, thank you. What a beautiful reaction and so spontaneous. So yes. This is very strange. I'm recording this in case you were wondering why you're shouting at the screen and I'm not appearing to take any notice of you. But I'm delighted to join you anyway for this very special event. There's lots of other fun stuff happening at the Ennis Bookclub Festival. Please do go to their website, which is probably somewhere around the screen or in their YouTube profile, and do check that out. But anyway, this is me, Colm O'Regan, and I'm here to talk to you about me, about everything, not the pandemic. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about books I wrote. So I wrote 2 novels. Here they are here. You can see my bookshelf there, carefully curated, but this is the most important bit. Books, 2 novels I've written most recently. I've also written the 3 books of Irish Mammies and Bolloxology. And so maybe we'll talk a little bit about Ann Devine in a little while. I will do some readings, all of that. But first of all, thanks for coming along. Let's not pretend that this is normal, but let's spend our time just looking forward to what we're going to do when all of this is over. Like, I see people talking about holidays that they're going to go on. One good thing, I have to say, one good thing about all of this, my expectations for a good time are on the floor. I am so easily pleased now. It's unbelievable. I was headed that way anyway because I'm a father of young children. So when we'd bring them for outings, our main expectation would be just, was it a success or was it a disaster? Like the concept of enjoying ourselves was, that would be an extreme luxury. So I was headed that way anyway. But now, when everything is over, when all of this is over and things open up again, my expectations, I am so easily pleased. People talk about, where would they go on holidays? What dream holiday would they like to go on again? They talk about going to Bali or Laos, which they'll pronounce Lao. And you know what? I just want to go somewhere where someone else will unload and load the dishwasher for me. I will pay somebody to unload the dishwasher. And that's not a kinky thing. They can be fully closed. I just want to watch somebody. For it not to be my problem. Especially I'll pay extra if it's been a bad wash. If there was mashed potato on a colander and it got all over the glasses. Like, I will pay for that, to somebody else do that. I might have to make conversation with them. I'll make them tea. But just great, just to see somebody else do the dishwasher. I just want to go to another toilet. I'm looking forward to a no consequences toilet. Where I just can leave and not have to deal with what I've just done. So, as I say, like I'll go to a hotel, but it doesn't even need to be a good hotel. I will go to a hotel, those old proper small town hotels where they still have that kind of prison telly up in the corner. They give you the key and the key is attached to a briquette and there's a library room in the hotel and it's got 4 books in it, 3 Jilly Cooper and an almanac for collecting coins, like that kind of thing. I'll go to any hotel. Do you know what? All I want in a hotel is just one hotel buffet breakfast. I am looking forward to a hotel buffet breakfast like you wouldn't believe because we've loved them anyway, but I think we took them for granted. I want to go in to that breakfast room, no matter how much the room cost. If the room cost €1,000, I don't care, because the breakfast is still technically, I feel, free. And I go into that buffet breakfast and I'll marvel at everything. Because we do that, don't we? We think of every buffet breakfast as a thing of wonder. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do that thing I always do. I'm going to pretend like I want some natural yogurt and fruit. I'm going to go up to the barrel of natural yogurt. I'm going to ladle it out into a bowl. I'm going to eat apples with a spoon. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend like that's what I want for breakfast. Go through that whole charade. And then I sit down and start eating maybe the satsumas with a spoon and the apples with a spoon and the natural yogurt. And somebody says, do I want tea or coffee? And I'll react like it's the best idea ever. I want to use the toaster, the special toaster in a buffet breakfast. You know, that weird one, the kind of medieval torture toaster chamber where you put in the bread and one of three things can happen. The toast comes out burnt, comes out untouched, or the toast goes missing. I love that bit. You put in the toast, there are less slices come out than what you put in. I just want to experience that. Then I go back down, sit at my little table with my fruit and my natural yogurt, and then realize that what I really wanted to do was go up and take a bath in the sausages. And I go up and the sausages are there and the rashers are kind of moving, they're quivering. I just want that. I want to pretend like I like fried tomato, but what I really want is beans. And I won't mind that they don't have beans out the front. I'll order the beans. And you know what I'll do then? No matter how late the beans are, I will stay for the beans. There could be a shuttle leaving for space outside. And I'll say, no, I ordered a ramekin of beans. I'm going to stick around for that. This is the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm looking forward to going to a pub. Just a simple pub where you go in without an appointment, without clearance. And I will leave after 90 minutes. I don't mind. I'll be easy. You can make me leave. If it's safe, if that's what we need to do to get back into the pubs when all of this is over. You know, how do you get people to leave a pub when they're having a good time? You could have an alarm clock. It feels a little brutal though. How do you get an Irish man to leave a pub? Sit down next to him and make it look like you're going to talk about your feelings. He'll be gone in a second. Absolutely, out the door. How do you get a large group to leave a pub when they're having a great time, chatting and talking and it's gregarious? Pretend to set up the band near them. That'll move them. So enough about that. My name is Colm O'Regan, or it should be anyway. That's what it says on your event. And I'm from Dripsey in County Cork, a little village that I'm very proud to be from. It's on the banks of the River Dripsey, which is a coincidence. And the river flows into the River Lee. And I grew up there in the late 70s, 80s and 90s. And it is not quite the inspiration for Kilsudgeon in the Ann Devine books, because it's a lot more positive a place, I think, than Kilsudgeon has allowed itself to become. But what Dripsey and Kilsudgeon and lots of places have in common is that capacity for divilment. There is a rural sense of humour that is slightly anarchic. It's surreal. It's self-aware. People laugh at people in the countryside like they don't know that we're in on the joke. We know the joke, okay? We live the joke. So don't worry. Because I like for example, Dripsey is the home at one point of the shortest St. Patrick's Day parade in the world ever. It went from 25 yards from one pub to another. And when this first one happened in 1999, they didn't have, because it's a small village, so they used all the resources of the area to make it a decent parade. It was 25 floats and everybody was involved. I know everybody was involved because the last float number 25, was a septic tank cleaner from Dennehy's sludge disposal. Literally a float for floaters. This is the kind of humour I grew up with, and it does inform some of the style of the Ann Devine books. I was born in 1978, so I grew up in a time of transition, but long ago enough to remember a very different Ireland. So this is me as a small boy. I'm just showing you that as a toddler in case this doesn't go well. You'll remember what I was once like. And then you can see me next on the farm. I grew up on a small farm. And this is how 80s dress was. I don't know why I'm dressed exactly the same way as a 26-year-old woman going to Glastonbury, but there you go. Those shorts are so short, I think I handed them down to myself. but that sets the scene, that kind of background. So Dripsy, sort of the inspiration for Kilsudgeon, but also the kind of stuff. What I love when I'm trying to write humour is how real life just presents itself with surreal situations when everybody is trying to do their best. You see this from my graduation photo. So I have 2 graduation photos. The reason I have 2 is because the first one looks like this. So I don't know if you can see that, but they've cut some, because I had my eyes closed, they cut somebody else's eye out and put it in instead of mine. And so I had to get another photo taken for my graduation. And I'm desperately trying to keep my eyes open in this photo. And that's why in this photo, I have that funny look like I'm the son of a Republican congressman. And I'm very confident of not being convicted of the charge that I'm up in front of the judge for. My books so far seem to all, or a lot of them, have an Irish mother as the centre of affairs. Now, they're actually books about Ireland, but the central character is often an Irish mother. People ask me, is it my own mother the inspiration for it? Maybe at the start, when I started the Twitter account, at the very, very start, when I was just writing down things that I thought were unique to every house, but it turns out they resonated with lots of people. It's always a surprise as a writer where you make something up, think that it's unique, and then you find other people saying, oh, that was us. So here is the thing that I wrote that everybody said, oh, that was us back then too. And it's this: will you have it in a bowl or with a wafer? The Sunday afternoon ice cream referendum. I thought that was only us, but turns out it was everyone. It depended on what bit of the newspaper you were reading. If you could read the newspaper bit with one hand, that would be the review bit, then you'd have it in the wafer. However, if you needed a bit of more stability, 2 hands out like this with the broadsheet, then it was in a bowl. So after the Twitter account, wrote a few books, and then Ann Devine was born. Ann Devine was born in the pages of the Farmer's Journal, where she had a column, a diary of an Irish mammy, and there I kind of sketched out the structure of her family, of Kilsudgeon. She is a mother, she's a daughter, she's a wife, she's a grandmother, and as a job she's a carer for old people in her area. And I wanted to put her at the centre of a community without making her the centre of attention. That's why she has the job she has. It also allows her to talk to different types of people. And I also have a great respect for carers who are underpaid and who are often, in some ways, the archivists of a generation that is disappearing before our eyes. So that's why Anne, she's this sympathetic, but flawed person as well too, with her own foibles. She's an unlikely hero, but a likely hero as well when you think about it. Kilsudgeon is a town recovering from a bypass. It's on its uppers, and it's kind of been bypassed by a lot over the last while. Isn't very prosperous, but there are prosperous people there. There's the TD, Patsy Duggan, who bears no resemblance to any independent TDs who act like Petty Taoiseach around the country. And I don't know where I got the inspiration for Patsy Duggan, the ducker and diver and shaper who has been re-elected lots of times, gets lots of local strokes pulled, but at the same time lines his own pockets very nicely. So I don't know what inspired me to put in that character. So Anne is just accidentally almost become vice chairperson of Kilsudgeon Tidy Towns, round about the same time that a big TV show is going to be shot in the local area. And this leads to conflict. That's the kind of the kernel of the book. But in this first reading from Ann Devine, ready for a close-up, I'm going to introduce you to Anne a little bit and to her niece Freya, who keeps Anne up to speed on modern developments in feminism. Anne is a bit upset because her youngest son Rory has gone away to college and she's been given tickets for a concert and she needs to figure out who she's going to bring. The phone rings. It's Deirdre. She knows straight away from my voice that I've been crying. Mammy, Daddy said you were up in a heap. I'm not up in a heap, I say, but I am. I look around the room and I see that Rory has left his woolly hat on the back of the chair and I'm off again. Mammy, says Deirdre, it's fine to be upset. After all, he's your last child and you're bound to feel a bit rudderless. Without a purpose. Happens to a lot of women your age. And also there's the prospect of having to spend more time with Daddy. Steady on, Deirdre. Well, Mammy, I've one thing you can be doing anyway. I've tickets for Ryan Montana tomorrow night. That'll take your mind off things. I don't know, Deirdre, I say. He wouldn't really be my scene. Well, you'd be the only one round here thinking that, ma'am. Everyone I know is going. There's even a bus laid on, leaving from the filling station. And Alva says that Miss Foley has them all making banners in 4th class. Go, ma'am, will you? I need to get rid of the tickets. Since she's made the effort, I decide to do it, and I drive up and collect the tickets from her. But who will I bring to it? It's a fundraiser for the church. They're renovating it again. It was done up about 15 years ago, but seemingly Father Donegan was saying that St. Udgens was missing out on a rake of weddings because there was no aisle, and brides want an aisle. They don't have an aisle, says Father Donegan. They've no reason to have the mass. So we're getting the aisle back. Ryan Montana isn't my scene, but he's a big deal now on the telly. You can't move for hearing his song Roundabout on the radio at the moment. I have to admit, the tune is fairly catchy, but the lyrics... They'll put anything into songs nowadays. How does it go again? Mama, wanna be your roundabout. If you yield to what's right, it's just a suggestion. Through the night, I'll ease your congestion. I'm a roundabout, baby. I'm up to the task. Just indicate, baby. That's all I ask. What kind of rubbish is that at all? We wouldn't be caught dead listening to country and Irish when I was growing up. Of course, country and Irish was a different story then. The band would be called Felix Fooey and the Bailers, or Johnny Jim and the Hardy Rockets, and you'd have some singer with a bit of a belly on him and a guitar and 6 gropey, sweaty lads on stage behind him going through the motions, imagining what kind of sex they'd be getting afterwards. I suppose they were the sex symbols of their day. But my gang, we were all into rock. Not that we ever went to a show or anything, although there was one trip to see Rod Stewart at the Adelphi. I think they're nearly more conservative now than we were. The crowd playing country music are very clean-cut compared to anything we saw on a stage. Young lads with fierce, shiny haircuts and good teeth. They look like they smell well. So, who am I going to bring? I text my niece Freya. Do oo want to go see Ryan Montana, hon? Dee is after giving me 2 tickets. Freya is straight back. Don't know, Auntie Anne. Supposed to be putting pins in my eyes. Come on, hon. Oo owe me. I brought oo to see that play. OMG, are you still on about that? Question mark, question mark, question mark. That was like eons ago, and I brought you. You needed that more than me at the time. I brought her up to Dublin to see that play about women talking to their bits, the monologues one. Not the original. It was an intersectional reimagining, according to Freya. Now, I sat there speechless, but it was very good. But I'm still traumatised, because I was afraid she was only 13 at the time and I'd be thrown out for bringing her. I've had to mind Freya a good bit down through the years, with Geraldine at work. To tell you the truth, I always look forward to seeing her. She's a pure tonic. The things she comes out with, you'd have to look them up afterwards. Geraldine says she spends a lot of time on feminist websites, reading about all sorts of injustices, and then she puts me to shame with what she knows. But you'd have to be fierce careful what you'd say in front of her, because she'd be right back at you with some fact or correction. Well, actually, Auntie Anne, she'd say, and then I'd know I was after letting the feminist side down. Dennis is ferocious fond of her, even though he's always trying to get a rise out of her. The suffragette, he calls her, and she calls him the cold, dead hand of the patriarchy. With love, of course. I text her again. I thought Ryan Montana would be your style. All the young ones are mad after him. She texts straight back. I am not fangirling an FAF, country music singer, Auntie Anne. And she puts one of those little getting sick pictures on it. The emotions, I think they're called. "Ah, do. Our poor auntie at a loss to know what to do with her life." Quick as a flash, she's back again. "Emotional blackmail? Question mark. And what's with the spelling? Stop trying to be cool." There was nothing from her for a while, but I figured I had her all the same, because she's a kind little one. She took her time, though. I was even waiting by the phone. What am I like? Then it beeped again, and I nearly knocked over an ornament reaching for it. "Okay, so we'll go with you, but I will totally hate it. I know. Sorry for delay in replying, just making you sweat. Not hard at your time of life, lol." That's my girl. Why pick a rural area as a topic of a humorous novel? Well, I'm from a place, a village a little bit smaller than Kilsudgeon. As I say, it was in the Guinness Book of Records, short of St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think that's something we'll all be looking forward to when all of this is over. Not the big festivals. Yes, the big festivals, but also, what about those small festivals? I love those. The ones that you don't see advertised in a double-page spread in the Irish Times. You see them advertised on a silage bale at a bad bend. How do you know they've started? When you're driving through the countryside and there's a 12-year-old directing traffic. Or driving. A 12-year-old driving. One or the other. So I'm looking forward to all that. But they are the kind of hallmark of the intimacy, often, of a small rural area where everybody knows everybody's business. Sometimes that's for good, sometimes that's for ill. And also where the local paper has that brilliant mixture of big and small story. I remember reading the Leitrim Observer one year, January the 10th, it had a headline that said, "Evenings Getting Brighter." Like they had the scoop long before anyone else. And in this excerpt, the other feature of the local newspaper, Dennis, Ann's husband, is reading out some of the court cases from the recent issue of the local newspaper, the Kilsudgeon Sentinel, trying to cheer Anne up by showing her what other mothers are going through. And there's one interesting court case involving the local communist. "They're kicking off again above in the north, Dennis." No reply from Dennis. His head is buried in the paper. He looks the picture of relaxation with his boots off. "Well, I've worries to share, and he's the nearest, so tough luck, Dennis." "I said they're kicking off above in the north, Dennis." I point at the news on the telly. One of the Orangemen is giving out about an Irish dancing competition. "This is a provocative, militant dance commemorating Republicans in battle, an affront to the Orange people. Siege of Ennis is clearly a crude and insulting metaphor for a 32-county socialist republic." "Stone mad they are," I say. "Stone mad is right, Anne," says Dennis, repeating without listening, and he rattles the newspaper up around himself to show that he thinks he should be considered off duty. "And if they do kick off again, there'll be carry-on down here as well too. Rory could be dragged into it. Do you remember during the Troubles, Dennis, they arrested students for making bombs?" Dennis says nothing. "Dennis!" He puts the paper down with a sigh. "They were engineering students, Anne. They had the education for it. Rory can't even change a plug. What is it he says? I'm the vision guy." "I don't know, Dennis." "Listen, Anne. No self-respecting paramilitary is going to get involved with Rory. Even they have standards to keep up. I know what makes sense, Dennis, but we know so little about what he's up to. He could be up to anything and we wouldn't know. He's drifted away from us. I only get a text from him from college, maybe once a week." "What kind of text do you get, Anne?" I look on my phone. "There's one here, Dennis. 'Story, ma'am,' it says. And then if I go back further, it says, 'Well, ma'am.' And before that, 'How's it going, mammy?' And how do you reply to him, Anne?" The usual. I say, 'All fine here.'" "You're not exactly War and Peace yourself, Anne." "Yes, Dennis, but it's not up to me to have the news. He's the one away from home. He should have all the news." "I don't know what he's up to. He could be drug dealing or anything." "Is he a drug dealer or is he an IRA bomb maker now, Anne? Which is it? I'm glad he's busy anyway." "I don't think you're taking me seriously, Dennis. It's always the same. I do all the work of the worrying and the thinking. At least do me the courtesy of listening." "I am listening, Anne. But look he's 20. 30 years ago, the likes of Rory would be gone to America illegally, up scaffolding, making huge money, probably working for much bigger gangsters than Patsy Duggan, and getting into fights in Hell's Kitchen with Puerto Rican fellas over turf. And we'd get a letter once every few months saying, all is grand here, they have lovely cars. Now, can't you let him grow up a bit? You're disrupting my routine. Dennis's Thursday evening routine is reading the Kilsudgeon Sentinel, the local paper. Its motto is, the world is your oyster, but Kilsudgeon is your home and you can't live in an oyster. There doesn't be much in it, but Dennis likes to read the court cases because it's a handy way of keeping up with the neighbours and what they're up to. Look, Anne, here's a good one, and he reads out one for me. This'll take your mind off our son, the paramilitary, when you see what other mothers have to put up with. Listen to this. And he reads out a headline. You're only a fascist prick. Local man in angry rant to judge. It's Davy Finnerty, Anne. He's at it again. Davy Finnerty usually features in the court cases about twice a year. He gets away with a fine most times because he comes from a respectable family, as they say in the paper every time. Davy had been part of the Kilsudgeon Communist Party, or rather he was the other fella in the Kilsudgeon Communist Party, but then they split on ideological grounds because one of them was a head case and one of them wasn't. Nowadays Davy probably would have got a diagnosis of something, but they weren't looking for much back in Kilsudgeon Primary School in the 1980s. Anyway, sure, if he did get a diagnosis, he'd still be on a waiting list. Dennis carries on with the court case. Listen to this, Anne. A Kilsudgeon man was threatened with contempt at a sitting of Kilsudgeon District Court today and remanded in custody after he refused to recognise the authority of the court. David Finnerty, with an address at the Pines, Mealert, hurled abuse at members of An Garda Síochána, the judge and his own solicitor, stating that he believed the Constitution of 1937 was invalid as it was signed by De Valera under pressure from a disgraced archbishop. And what did the judge say to him? Well, Anne, listen to this. The judge warned the defendant, don't be coming in here with your Airtel law degree. And then Finnerty starts roaring that he was dismissing his solicitor because she must have been riding the judge, and that he would be defending himself henceforth under the Brehon laws of the country. And that's when he told the judge to F off, that he was a fascist prick. There you go now, Anne. Moving on to the sequel, or second book. Would you call it a sequel? A lot of the same characters are there. So in the first one, Celt's Hound of Destiny was the TV show that was attempted to be shot in the area with hilarious consequences. They attempted to bribe people by bringing in broadband. In this one, this is set in a defined summer, 2018. A very interesting summer in Ireland, bookended by the repeal referendum and the Pope's visit. Two very different aspects of Ireland, but the same Ireland and the same people. And I was interested in the idea of the yes voters who went to see the Pope and the no voters who wouldn't have anything to do with him. I like the grey area where it's not obvious looking at somebody what their views are. So into all of that, Kilsudgeon's post office is in danger of closing. And I threw into the mix some far-right campaigners who are trying to exploit the post office closing in order to spread a bigger message from that part of the political spectrum about what they think about outsiders, foreigners, and indeed some of the people who felt aggrieved after the result of the repeal referendum. It turns out to have been quite prescient. This was set in 2018. It was written in 2019 based on what certain groups were up to in 2020. So it just goes to show it's not that hard to predict the future if you have a good look at what's going on in the present. So in this book, just to read, I'll read an excerpt from it now. And in this first excerpt, Anne has gone to Brussels to help her young son Rory settle in. Rory is he's fallen under the sway of Patsy Duggan. He's Patsy Duggan's acolyte, but also Patsy Duggan is grooming Rory to be his successor, because Patsy Duggan doesn't have any children of his own. But he is that petty Taoiseach, believes in succession, believes in dynasty, but he doesn't have a child to continue on the dynasty. So how does that work? He latches onto Rory, sends Rory to Brussels to learn the ropes of being an MEP from the MEP for that whole area, Mick the Lamp. And Mick the Lamp is called Mick the Lamp because he said he would leave a lamp lighting for emigrants when he went out to Brussels. But it turns out the only lamps being lit are those in the fine dining, dimly lit restaurants that he has become as sleek as a calf in, in no way resembling any MEPs who may have gone out to Brussels and been slightly forgotten by the rest of us on $250,000. But this first excerpt, Anne is coming back from Brussels, having received news of her mother's fall. Her mother fell at devotions. And she's coming back from Brussels. She's in Brussels airport. Her mind's a little distracted, and she gets into a spot of WhatsApp bother. The taxi drops me at the airport. I look up when I get out, and there's a big sign over my head. Kiss and ride, it says. Ha, that's a good one. I take a photo of it with the phone. I'll send that now to Dennis for a bit of divilment. When I go inside the airport, I'm a bit disorientated. I don't think I've ever negotiated an airport on my own. Dennis isn't good in them either, but between us, we usually muddle through. I look around to try and find Zone C. Or is it B? I'll have to look for that email. It's very crowded, but then I see a few pink, odd-shaped heads that look Irish, and by following them, I get to the desk. In the queue, I send the WhatsApp. I type it out. I saw this and I thought of you, haha. Maybe you'll get one or the other if you've the place tidy for me when I get home. XX. 2 X's for Dennis. I send it off up into the air and go through security. Bing, 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 says the phone on the conveyor belt. Bing, it says, coming out the other side. Dennis is replying quickly. It must have livened him up. I put on my shoes and see what he has to say. But Dennis has nothing to say. Because I haven't sent him the WhatsApp, I have WhatsApped Kiss and Ride and a dirty invite to the Kilsudgeon Tidy Towns WhatsApp group, to 20 or 30 of the nosiest residents of the parish. It landed in straight after a discussion about the post office closing. But now the group has to page way down to see any more information about the post office closing because my Kiss and Ride message has arrived in to start the party. All the bings are everyone else in the group having a right old laugh. Even the driest shites are in top form over it. I go for both options, lol, says one person. Fair play, Anne. That'll get the attention of the media, says someone else. You'll go viral, Anne. Fair play, Anne. That one is from the Nolan twins. When did they join the group? Oh, for God's sake. The last 2 people in the world you'd want to be making an idiot of yourself in front of. The 2 Nolans work with Dennis on the lorries, and they're like subtitles on every single thing that goes on around the place. In fact, fair play, Anne, seems a bit tame out of them, but then they wouldn't be great at the typing. Then it seems they've got into their stride. They must be sitting together, because the messages start coming in from them exactly the way they'd say it. Dennis will be in no fit state on Monday, says twin 1. He's not in any state on any Monday, says the other twin. That's true. Now we know why. He's very tidy, though. He should join the group. Will you be taking this on Parsnip, Anne, or is there a committee for this too? That one arrived in after a bit of delay. They must have been thinking that one out. Only the autocorrect made a balls of it for them. Parsnip instead of personally. The white van is back. This message comes in, but I think somebody else posted it to the wrong group. That one was meant for Neighbourhood Watch. Then there's a message only for me from Gordon, and he's asking if I meant to send that message about Kiss and Ride to the entire group. What does he think I meant to do? Do I look like the kind of person who responds to news about a post office closing by promising my husband he's going to get looked after when I get back from the continent? Bing! The group is still replying. How do I delete it? I say to Gordon. Except I don't send that to Gordon. I send that to the group as well. Too late now, says one of the twins. The secret's out, says the other. No wonder they're all keen to go to Brussels. The youngest lad has gone out there, another person explains to the group. explaining our family news to someone else in the Kilsudgeon WhatsApp group. 087 such and such is typing. Oh God, what now? But this isn't from the group. This is a WhatsApp from Freya, just to me. I forgot that she's in the group too. Screaming Auntie Anne, she says. Seriously, cannot deal. Just giving us an idea for our podcast this week. And she puts in the little monkey with the hand over its face picture. I reply that I'm glad she's inspired, but could she please help me delete the thing? She sends me instructions, and eventually I calm down enough to delete all the messages, and I reply sorry that I'll be back again to look at the post office very soon. Then there's another flurry of texts from people who've missed the whole rigmarole and are raging. We've a screenshot, says the twins. Don't worry, Freya texts me. None of these boomers have a clue how to do a screenshot. I don't know what a boomer is, but I presume I'm one of them. Thanks, love, I say. But I know how to do one, she says, and she sends me a screenshot. Freya, don't you dare. Joking, Auntie Anne, but I've something on you now. I couldn't not read this bit out. It's the book club extract, because this is a book club festival. And there's a bit of projection going on in this excerpt. I think I am that author who worries what is a book club thinking about my book. It's bad enough worrying what an individual reader thinks, but the thoughts of a load of people passing a book around and going, well, that was a waste. It haunts my dreams, Ennis Bookclub Festival. It haunts my dreams. So there's a bit of exorcism, a bit of therapy in this excerpt, and also another bit of projection, because they're dealing with a difficult book, a complicated book, a very clever book in the book club in Kilsudgeon this week, the week that Anne joined it for the first time. And I'm constantly plagued by the notion that I'm just probably not clever enough to understand some books. It's not false modesty. It's not a backhanded compliment. I genuinely think there are some things my brain can't wrap itself around. So, in this excerpt, I am the author who has written the story that nobody likes, and I am Anne, worried that they're not clever enough to enjoy a complicated book. Laura says she's going to get the food, which is good because I am fit to eat my hand and I've drunk my wine too fast. I can feel myself being a bit warmed up already. That's the thing about wine, it sneaks up on you. I hope I don't have to say too much at this book club. Eventually, mercifully, Laura comes back with a tray of sausage rolls and a few other nibbly bits, and she taps a glass. Now, ladies, we'll have to talk about that book before we get too well on. What did you think? Who wants to go first? Sally has assured me that they won't ask me about The Wife's Wife because I've just joined. The book is about a woman who has some sort of gift, but I don't know yet what it is. And she turns up as a different person all through the ages, as a queen in one bit, and then as a man fighting for ISIS. And then there's one chapter where I think she might be a fish. Devastating, said the New York Times. But the only bit I can remember for definite is that there's a bit of sex early on, but even that lost me. Now, Anne and Stephanie, says Laura, don't worry. We won't expect you to contribute to the discussion at such short notice. Actually, ladies, says Stephanie, I binged on this on the flight over. What a coincidence. And Stephanie launches into a discussion of the book. Yeah, I met the author in Sharjah at a corporate literary event I was curating, and I'm so glad because that really helped inform my view. The women hang on Stephanie's every word. Now, this is a nicely turned out room of women, but she, by comparison, is like someone off the telly. Yeah, it really is a fascinating exploration of what it means to be a woman. This is something I've always been interested in, the complex interplay of gender identity and culture. Because Dubai is so multicultural, a real melting pot. She combines, the historical background with some very contemporary points, and so on. Stephanie finishes a big long sentence with the word dialectic in it, and then, when she has them in the palm of her hand, she gives her audience me on a plate. But here I am taking over things. Anne, what did you think? I suppose, as you said, Stephanie, it was good. Like, there were good bits in it. And you don't know what's going to happen next, I suppose, with the different places. And then, well, sure, yeah, and I think she turns into a man for one bit. Someone coughs. I lose my train of thought completely, which was easy because I didn't have any train of thought. Desperately trying to remember the only bit of the book I read. And the bit on the ship, like, that was good. You know, you really know you're on a ship, like it's windy. I dry up. They're looking at me. They say, don't they, about time slowing down and when you're under stress. There's no sign of that happening. But maybe the wine hits the right bit of my brain at the right time, and in vino veritas and all that. Look at girls, I say. I have to admit. Go on, says the wine. I couldn't make head nor tail of the shagging thing. Honestly, I'm sorry now, and I'm on my first time here to the book club, and I'm acting the gom, but for the bit of it I read, I'm sure the woman that wrote it is very clever, but she lost me completely. You'll have to move on to the next person, because I'm no good for this. There is silence. Thanks a million, wine. Oh, thank God, says Laura, and she bursts out laughing. I couldn't read it either. Fair play to you, Stephanie. You're a better woman than me. But Anne, I'm like you. I was dreading talking about it. Aileen Salmon, a woman I've never spoken to before, says, Anne, I thought it was a bag of shite. Stephanie, I'll try to give it another go based on what you said, but I can't promise. And then they all chime in. Alice Marr says she hardly slept last night for worrying about the book, and thank God someone put her out of her misery. And then Carmel says, and did any of you get to that first sex scene? Which one was that, Carmel? The one with the fishermen? Here it is, girls, hold on. Carmel has been licking her thumb and paging. She looks at us over her glasses, as if I didn't know exactly where it was. Wait now. Dirty laughs ripple round. Carmel makes a big show of clearing her throat. She lies back, Carmel reads, examining her own form, distractedly aloof. The sfumato-like shadow across her proud form delicately flutters as her lover drowsily gets up, dresses in his diaphanous gown, and proceeds to the bureau where he resumes his work, conjuring words from ephemeral thoughts. She goes to the window and stares out at the oleaginous vista below. As his rhythmic typing echoes around the wooden frames of the house, she cries out as a pang strikes her, a soupçon of doubt. 1,000 miles and 1,000 years away in a ship, someone hears her invocation across the 4 dimensions. Awful stuff, says a woman whose name I don't know. And I hate them books written in the present, you know. I do this and I go over to the window. I mean, like, it obviously happened already, or we wouldn't be reading about it in a book. True for you, Bernie. That's the way we all started reading books. I get a rush of wine to the head and open my gob again. And then, like, who is she riding? If she thinks that's what happens, Dennis would be asleep. He'd be no more typing afterwards than he would drive a train. Out for the count. There's no reaction for a second. Feck, I think. I've gone too far. But then there are howls of laughter. Who is she riding? Says Laura. That should be the name of the book. Oh, Anne, you're a scream. They've no idea of the real world, these old authors, do they? And she's right. One of the themes in both books is intergenerational experience, and how Anne is early 60s or late 50s. So she remembers an Ireland that's very, very different to the Ireland she's in now. And one of the reasons why she's a good character is because she's a grandmother, she is right up to date with whatever's going on with the latest toddler or the latest 7-year-old. So she is somebody who can remember to get tablets for her mother once a fortnight, but also knows that her grandchild plays Fortnite on a tablet. She's a woman who was probably bombarded with internet ads about bucket lists, but she remembers, having a bucket to wash your hands and feet in around the house. She remembers different parts of Ireland. So I'm always interested in the mixture of the modern and the old. It was brought home to me years ago for the first time. I used to thumb into college, and I got a lift from a neighbour who was bringing her son into a very expensive fee-paying school in Cork City. And you could just see the fault line in the accents between them. She was saying, "What time will I pick you up after school?" And her son was saying, Yeah, Mum, well, actually, I'm just probably gonna go to Kyle's gaff afterwards. And you saw the generational gap between them, both in background and the people they hung around with, just sharply delineated in those accents. That's something that always interested me. So, just for a bit of a giggle, they're going to a hipster restaurant in Ann Devine, handle with care. It's in Drumfecal, the rival to Kilsudgeon, the Shelbyville to Kilsudgeon Springfield. And it has a swanky restaurant that was mentioned on Nationwide, and they're doing a roaring trade. The restaurant is in an old garage, which leads to a very interesting architectural feature that you'll hear about in the reading. And it also confronts Dennis with cuisine that he knows is not going to agree with him. In this respect, Dennis is inspired by my own father. Dennis always has the beef when he goes to a restaurant. It's, it's constitutional right. And let's see what happens in this restaurant where, the tables are made of pallets and workbenches and nobody's wearing any socks. We're shown into the restaurant. Dennis lets out a sigh he's been expecting to sigh ever since he heard we were going to Slaughterhouse and Winch. Slaughterhouse and Winch have expanded into the premises next door, and the premises next door used to be a garage. Dennis is in his element for complaining. I got a Fiat 121 fixed in here one time. Paddy Pit Stop had it then. Poor old Paddy would get another heart attack and die again in his grave if he saw it now. I wonder did they fill in the pit? We sit down. The floor is just bare concrete, and the pipes and ducts are all painted with big slogans. Disrupt everything, says one. You are now, says another. Is this your kind of thing, Freya? I ask my niece. She shakes her head. Trying too hard, Auntie Anne. Look at the hole. Because they haven't filled in the garage pit, and there's even one table for two down inside in it. Dennis peers in. It's Petey Welch, the mountainy farmer, and his daughter Isla. Will you have a look at the alternator while you're down there, Petey? Says Dennis. It was making a noise on the way up. I'd say she's gone. That Skoda was a bad buy. Petey is unimpressed and doesn't take the bait. What kind of a fucking yoke of a place is this at all, Dennis? A restaurant with a hole in it, he says. Stop moaning, Daddy, says Isla. She's taking selfies against a mural on the pit wall. The mural is of Russian-looking ones holding hammers. The past is female, says the wall. Come in for an Insta, Daddy. This place is iconic. And she puts her arm around him and hauls him back into the chair. He still has a puss in him, so that won't do for Isla's photo. She's having none of Petey's moaning. You've such a resting bitch face, Daddy. Look, it's Mammy's anniversary. You know well she would have wanted you to be feeling like you need it. And don't you have the morning off the milking tomorrow anyway, and this is the thanks I get? I'm in the pit of despair, Dennis, he says, but he smiles. Or grimaces, for the photo all the same. They're a great pair. Isla is keeping him alive. She's stone mad for the farming. She was drawing silage for a contractor during her junior cert. Now she's a bit of a social media star. Agri-Hun, she calls herself on Instagram. She put eyelashes on her tractor and the internet was all over it. Hi, Isla. Freya waves shyly. Hey, Starbar, she shouts up. We still good for the recording soon? I heard the one you did about Patsy's repeal video. It was fire, girl. Drag him, hun. Oh my God, yes, totally. We can do a mutual. Freya is beaming. I was just setting up the studio. Well, Auntie Anne's sitting room today. What's a mutual, Freya? I ask her as we go back to our table. I'll be on her podcast and she'll be on mine. You have to do that around here because there's no one else to interview. The restaurant is rammed. It was mentioned on Nationwide last week. They were doing a bit on Ireland's Abandoned Middle, the new tourist area for places that got left out of the Wild Atlantic Way and the ancient East. The hipster heart of Ireland, they were calling Drumfecal. They didn't take that too well around Kilsudgeon, because Kilsudgeon used to be the place to be because of the big factory, and then everyone laughed at Drumfecal because it was nearer the landfill. But then the landfill closed, and the factory closed, and now Drumfecal thinks it's Berlin. We are sitting at a table that used to be an old workbench, by the looks of it. The menus are in a vise. Everything here seems to be made of pallet. Our table has a streak of blue paint across the end of it. Dennis strokes it admiringly. He's terrible fond of pallets, and hates to see them thrown outside. Not a bad place for a pallet to end up. There's a lot of history in a pallet. Great to see them getting the use out of these. He seems to be directing these remarks at Stephanie, my glossy daughter-in-law. She smiles, but she wouldn't be known for strong views on pallets. Mam eases herself onto a butter box, but then she gets stuck because in leaning over, her miraculous medal somehow got through a gap in the table, and then when she leaned back, the medal stayed under, and she's tied by a string to the table. This is not what she needs now at her hour of life. I'm sure she isn't the first to get a miraculous medal stuck in a pallet in this place. We managed to disentangle her, but she looks like she won't enjoy anything after this. Okay for drinks, guys. Hi, I'm Jaden. I'll be your server tonight. Let me tell you about the specials. I have a feeling I know him to see from Freya's school, but the accent, pure Yank. They're all American now. Deirdre reckons it's because the children are all reared on Paw Patrol. Server, mutters Dennis. They're gone from the altar into the restaurants. A few people have asked me, what would Anne do during the pandemic? What would life be like for them now? Well, just for you, an exclusive. I have written, it's not on paper now, it's still on the tablet, an exclusive short story about Anne and Dennis negotiating one of the more practical issues of lockdown number 3. Shag it, how do I... Dennis? Can you come up here? I can almost hear him sigh through the ceiling. He thumps up the stairs to the bedroom, and he sees me cursing at the mirror in foul humour. Can you get me that comb, Dennis? I'm after dropping it on the ground, and if I get it myself, I'll let go of the hair. Just when I had the right amount gathered up. He knows well enough not to say anything. There comes a time in a marriage where the most important skill is to not say a word when it's clear the other person in the marriage is making a hames of something. Takes it all in, picks up the comb and hands it to me. He edges out of the room at the right speed, fast enough to show that he's not hanging around, but slow enough to give me a chance to say something if I want to. Just as he's on the door saddle, I let it out. It's the sections, Dennis. The sections? He looks at me wondering if I should be sectioned. You've to do it by sections. I think my guideline's in shite. Can you look there? Are my hands at right angles? You're supposed to not slope your fingers out. That's what the wand said. I'm trying to cut my own hair. I couldn't take it anymore. With the way the roots are, I'm gone like a badger. You forget how much grey you have when you've been tipping away up to Francis Deegan for decades getting the same do done, the roots and a bit of a trim. The first lockdown was bad enough, but I'd been queued out and got an appointment on the 1st of March 2020, would you believe? And that was even before the WhatsApp started going around about the soldiers. It was Dennis said it, actually. He was watching the news and he said I'd better go up and get a haircut. And he said, you could do as one too, Anne. Well, I ate him for saying that, but I'm glad I took his advice. So bad and all as we were in some state. But this time round, we got our timing all wrong. We said we wouldn't go to see anyone before Christmas. We'd keep away from everyone. And that's the way we were about it. You know, you start seeing everyone as unclean, start thinking about their fingers being covered in corona. The one is on YouTube cutting a mannequin's hair, and I can't keep up. Dennis clears his throat. What is it, Dennis? Spit it out. Do you want me to give it a go? You? I did the dog, didn't I? After that old vet made a lube on of him. But that's a clippers, Dennis, and if it was a dog, I'm not a dog. I might have the colouring of a border collie, but I thought you said you were a badger. You're not inspiring the client here, Dennis. Show me them scissors there, Anne. He runs his thumb along them. They're gone blunt, Anne. They used to be the good scissors, but you've been using them for all sorts. That cuts deep. I was a demon, 'tis true, for making sure good scissors were kept good, but we've all let our standards drop in this pandemic. He goes off with them. I see him out the window, nearly running out to the shed. Skipping he is. He comes out a few minutes later, waving up at me. Then there's a clattering downstairs, and he shouts up to me, Come down, Anne, they're lovely and sharp now, and we've a bit of room down here. I go down and he has the tall chair set up at the kitchen counter, and there's a mirror balanced against the bread bin. And then The idiot, I have to laugh. He has 2 biscuits up on the counter and a cup of tea and a magazine. It's the Lidl catalogue, and next to it, the Coin Yearbook 2021. He's into coins, though he doesn't make money, he says. I'm sorry, we've no women's magazines, Anne. We'll have to refresh the selection. Now, do you want it washed? I'm nearly roaring laughing at him, the way he washes my hair. He asks me, is the water all right? Will you just wash it, you flute, I said to him. He has me ducked into the sink, like the way we all used to wash our hair before showers. It reminds me that the sink could do with a bit of bleaching, but I leave that to the salon owner. I'm up on the chair, and then he nearly rips the head off me drying my hair. I'm laughing and shouting at him at the same time. Will you stop? Will you let go? You're not sanding me. I finish the drying myself, and then start combing, and then he says, leave it to me, Anne. Get the tablet so till we have a look at herself. He sets it up and plays the video on YouTube. How to cut a uniform layer haircut. Start with the mohawk section, says Felicia on the video. You'll be like a punk, Anne. Don't be worrying me, Dennis. Not even joking. Don't say that. He pauses, presses play, goes back 30 seconds. Now he's talking to himself like he does when he's fixing an engine. Right so, Felicia, he says to the woman doing the video. So you're telling me that I need to get them into quadrants. Easier said than done, says you, Felicia. And you've a mannequin. These scissors are terrible fiddly. I can't even look at what he's doing. Eventually, he seems to get himself sorted. Now we're sucking diesel. Drive on now, says you, Felicia. The video is talking now about the sections and the quadrants. He has my hair pinned back. How does he do it? Well, he shuffled around the drawers and found clothes pegs. He has my hair pinned back with clothes pegs. These'll do for quadrants, Anne, he says. I have to say it's nice having his hands on my head. I wouldn't get too many head rubs these days. Make sure you're 90 degrees off the head, says Felicia. You said it, Felicia, says Dennis. Dennis grabs a hold of a bit of hair, pulls it, combs it, and I hear the first cut. I see the hair fall over my shoulder, down onto the ground. It's a lot of hair. Dennis, you'll scalp me. I'm giving you a pixie cut like you're one. That's a mannequin, Dennis. That's not a real person. I can't be going around Kilsudgeon with a pixie cut. Kilsudgeon's not the place for a woman of my age to be getting pixie cuts. They'll think I'm away with the fairies. Who'll think it? So where would you be going these days? Anyways, I've done one bit now, so I'll have to do the rest like it or you look lopsided. I've given up at this stage. Anyway, the weather is cool enough that I can wear a hat until level 3. I just relax into it. I'm even reading his Coin 2021 yearbook. Are you going anywhere nice in your holidays, Anne? He says. Will you stop it? The hair piles up on the ground. It's mostly the dyed stuff. Whatever I am now, I'm grey for the foreseeable. Time to own it, as they say. As the time goes on, Dennis seems to get into a rhythm. He starts humming to himself. What you do well, boys. Now so, he says dramatically, after one particularly hard bit of brushing. I'd been trying to ignore it by not looking in the mirror, but now I look at it properly, and when I see it, I can't believe it. It's not bad at all. A bit short, for my liking, but it looks like a haircut you might pay for, like a younger woman might get, except for the grey. And the COVID stone, well, that's a bit more obvious around the face now, but still, it's a bob. Be no need for a hat at all, so the next time I'm in the shop. They notice me the next time I'm in the shop. Anne, says Noreen, where did you get the hair done? You're a new woman. Dennis, I said. Dennis? I tell Nora all about Felicia and YouTube and Dennis and sharpening the scissors out in the shed. The thing is, though, I'm getting funny looks all over Kilsudgeon as I go about my business. Dennis had said to me that they'd think I was a bit continental, and he was right. I'm barely home when the squad car is in the yard after me. Gorda Lorraine Toomey gets out. Phil Jordan, the other guard, stays inside, fiddling with his phone. Anne, she says, how are you, Lorraine? Anne, I'm sorry to have to do this, but we're following up on a complaint about you. About your hair. Oh, what do you mean? I'm all confused. Did Dennis take too much off, I wonder? I didn't think they were that strict about pixie cuts in Kilsudgeon. We're wondering, Anne, where you got your hair done. We know with all the hairdressers closed. Are you attending a black market hairdresser? A black... No, no, it was Dennis who cut it. Dennis. Lorraine does not sound convinced. She takes out a little notebook. She takes her hat off, scratches her own hair, which, I notice, is in a bit of a state. Dennis cut your hair. She says it again. Dennis appears at the door. Come in, Lorraine, says Dennis, and see for yourself. There are now 2 guards in my kitchen, looking round the floor for bits of my hair. Thank God we're not so house-proud. There's actually plenty of it still left on the floor. Do you want a DNA sample to prove it's Anne's? Says Dennis, pure smart like. They shake their heads. No, says Lorraine, but don't be telling anyone else. We don't want a queue up here. And Dennis? What guard? When this is over, says Lorraine, you might slot me in.